Hey guys, it's Celine. It's Tuesday, yes, the 18th of October. As you can see, brilliant sunshine, blue skies from A to Z, gorgeous. Although I was in the mood for having, a bit more of a autumnal kind of atmosphere. It's they're saying it's only today that we're going to be in the sun like this, so I'm okay with it. Yeah, it rained yesterday, and I think the day before as well. Not heavily, but enough for nature to reassert itself in the form of mushrooms and amanitas and fly caps and stuff like that. They're coming out and I'm enjoying them. I can still see though that a lot of the mushrooms are, well, the mycelium seems to have suffered from the heat and the drought that we've had. Quite a bit. You see much more, smaller mushrooms. They're drier, they grow really slowly, stuff like that. It's only over the past couple of days that you actually see more normal looking mushrooms. That is not why I am here today. Okay, so I want to do a Tummo update where I kind of hopefully, can make some sense if possible. I've had a really tough phase recently. So, changes in my life. I've vlogged about sort of Tummo healing operations that we've done with my husband. And I mean, I'm super pleased with the result. So is he. We've actually seen change happen to him. He's feeling lots better. There's things that are changing in his life, in his emotional life, in how strong he feels, how well he can cope with his life and his work and clients and all the rest of it. Since doing that particular treatment, there's been, you can't say it any other way, there's just been massive improvement. So there's two things coming out of that for me. I can relax a bit more around him, theoretically, that is, because I can see that it's, he's doing well. We've talked about things. We've also, been able to have conversations about how he feels and about the changes sort of in perspective that you get from this kind of treatment. I will explain, if you've never heard me talk about this stuff before, in a tiny bit. I will explain exactly what it is that we've done exactly, because I think that might be beneficial for myself as well. In a bit, okay? So, but the thing is that it's been triggering for me as well. The fact that he's changing, the fact that he's got, what's one funny thing that's come out of his treatment is that he's got a lot more energy in his core of his body, so in his belly as well as up here, and than before, where there were huge areas that were completely blocked by emotions from his past, basically. And the sort of liberation that has given, it results in him behaving in a way that is kind of more childlike sometimes, and there's more room for him. I had to go to the door to get a package. No decks this time, and no spooky stuff either. It is just flour, from a windmill that I normally go and visit, that I've actually shown on my channel as well, where they grind their own wheat and so on into flour. So yeah, but last time we passed there, they were closed, and so they sent the flour to me instead of by post. So yeah. I have had such triggeredness and such anxiety over the past couple of weeks even, part of which was because of the change, and the more I sort of figure out with him what's happening to him and keep track of things. There's been moments where it was a bit harder for him to deal with emotions because of this childlike, nearly innocent kind of a way he was coping, I suppose, you know. So less coping in general and more realness, more truth in how he was doing things. So it's really cool. It's really positive. He's pleased. I am pleased. And the bottom line is I have been super triggered the whole time by this and by everything else in my life. So like 100% of the time, I have been having to, I don't know, really. For example, this morning I got a couple of guys over for the first time, actually. Let me grab a handkerchief here. They had to come and clean my windows, the outsides of my windows, because I've got a fairly large house here, and it needed professionals and people with ladders, you know, to actually get the outs. Also because I've sliding windows in most of my house, in the second floor or first floor, depending on how you look at it, with so they're double windows, double glazing in a way, but you can slide them open, and you can't get at that from the outside unless you're on a ladder with the proper equipment and all that. So I got those guys through the internet from a couple of villages over yonder to come over for just 50 euros. They've cleaned my whole place, nearly my whole place. It was fabulous. And I have been stressed out because I have a history of having a hard time dealing with strange men traipsing around the place. I always get completely tied in knots over that because I'm alone and I feel threatened. And these guys were very friendly, totally relaxed, completely uninterested in this one lone female sitting here knitting and watching YouTube videos. And still I was completely triggered and completely, you know, like that. So that was an hour ago. I'm really relieved they're done. I paid them and they were done a great job. I'm completely happy. I will, call them back next year to come and do the whole thing over again. So, I have no sensible reason to not be completely happy, to not be ecstatic over the way my windows look now, because they're done and things have been done. I've lived in this house for 10 years. I am ecstatic at the state of the windows now. Also because I did a large part of the inside, the upstairs part of the apartment, the inside windows myself. So they're cleaner than I have ever seen them. Yay me, you know? I organized this whole thing. It was not a problem. I can still do the organizing, but on the inside, it's like a boiling cauldron of trouble and woe and mess and bad alchemy. God. So, what's the other thing? I have a new volunteer job that I can do via the internet where I have to incorporate data into a web page, and it wasn't working. So I've been super triggered about that. I'm just giving you a couple of my scenarios here where I have apparently some wonderful reason to lose all sense of myself. And this has been my pattern all my life, okay? This is why I'm a stay-at-home person. I get crippling anxiety. I do not take medication for this. I never have because I don't see the point. However, I practice Tummo, okay? So this is where we segue into the Tummo part of the story here. So far, this isn't going too bad. 10 minutes worth of introduction as to why it has been a bit difficult, you know. So I suppose I should sort of give you a bit of an overview, if possible, of what my Tummo practice really involves. I've talked about this on my channel 100 times already. There's lots of videos about the how and the what. Most of them are a bit older. A couple of years ago, I've been doing this particular practice for about 3 years now, nearly 3 years in January. It's involves becoming very sensitive to what I call Shakti energy, which is an energy which just sits at the base of your spine and mostly doesn't really get much of a chance to, let's say, participate in your life or in your emotions in Western culture. I think in the East and certainly in India, things are different. And I could go into a whole lot of details about why I think that's important, or at least it's important for me, past lives and whatever else. I don't really, as if I don't, well, I have lots of, I've also got videos about that, past lives and stuff. And it's very fascinating to me, but it's not necessarily something you can find in your own life. Okay. It's everybody's past life history is different, and some of this is mine. I suppose it's kind of obvious that I have a certain facility and ease of work with this whole Tummo thing, with this Shakti energy approach. I've done this for years now, but I got into it in a way that was fairly confident and easy from the start. So I suppose you can safely say that I have past life experience with this type of work somehow. And I don't really have much more info or images or storylines or anything specific other than most of what I've already talked about on my channel. So having said that, the trick is that there's a combination of two kinds of energy tech, if you like, energy technology, where the one is the Kundalini, the Shakti energy in your body needs to grow into your system. You need to learn, if this is you, okay, you need to learn how to work with this. I have so far had great results learning to work with this. And a part of how you learn to work with this energy is by getting it to consolidate inside your body, because the Shakti by herself is a very wild, actually kind of dangerous, hard to control, hard to direct kind of power. I believe it is the origin of all witchcraft myself. I believe it is the lifeblood, the Kundalini energy, the Shakti energy, is the same thing, is the lifeblood of everything that we call craft, witchcraft or otherwise. Okay. Things are possible through working with this energy that we have no clue about, that are really unconventional, and like the work I've done with my husband so far. Okay, I have been able to intervene in a part of his energy system inside his body and make disappear, if you like, a pattern that has controlled all his life, all his emotions, his work, his state of stress, all of it, for the whole of the 62 years that he's been walking around on this planet. Okay? Using my, the developed results coming from my own Tummo practice. But it's a thing that the Tummo practice goes in stages, okay? First of all, you have to have this kind of confidence that this is your thing. You have to feel drawn to it from in here somewhere. Like it just keeps talking to you, and it keeps, couple of months later, you're still, but it's not automatic. Even though it's a very powerful force, it will not force itself on you unless you invite it. And then comes the stage, or the several stages, where you have to learn to work with it and learn to incorporate it and to consolidate it, as I was saying just now. So this consolidating happens, and the whole idea and most of the culture around Shakti energy is actually Indian. Kundalini chakras and all that is actually Indian. what I have been able to figure out is that there is a part of Chinese culture that has to do with martial arts and healing medicine over there, and probably also Taoist medicine and sorcery and all those kinds of things that I still know very little about. But they work with, other than chakras, which is India, right? In this Chinese side of things, you work with dantians, levels in the body that serve actually only to consolidate the Shakti energy into forms where it becomes much easier. It's kind of slows down and it becomes more compact, and you can direct it and tell it where to go and which things to do more and more. So then there's a whole lot of stages in that, where the three dantians at the hip bone level, at the heart level, and inside the head, inside the skull, those are the three levels, okay, the three dantians, actually come into play, and actually one after the other create a stronger and stronger field of Tummo, okay, where it's, and because Tummo is a Tibetan term, it's a Tibetan technique. Personally, I believe that maybe, well, let's be very conservative here, but at least 60% of all Himalayan, Buddhist or otherwise, symbolism and iconography, imagery, actually is rooted in the Tummo practice, much more than anybody ever really makes the link. Nobody makes the link that all those figures with all that fire around them and those circles around them standing on, other figures and whatever else, with all the same symbols and the widespread legs and the arms and the snakes. In India, it's often with snakes, the skulls in Tibet, all that stuff is, in my perspective nowadays, it has its root in Tummo, which doesn't, of course, mean that everybody in those areas of the world who has a practice involving one or more of those deities is actually involved in Tummo, because that's human history for you. People, what I think happened is that there have been elaborate practices of Tummo in pre-literate areas, in pre-literate periods of time, thousands of years ago, in those areas, okay? So in the Himalayas, in China, in the Southeast Asia, probably in India, certainly. For hundreds of years, probably, people have had schools, I think, and practices that that other younger people inherited from them. They were taught in this for a while. And so there's a whole cultural history thing going on here, which I do not need you to, I do not need you to listen to all this. It's just a bit of context. I personally cannot see any of those figures anymore without sort of placing it for myself in the context of Tummo, the Black Mahakala figures, Troma Nagmo. There's the history, the cultural history that we do know, that we have literature about, that has been written about in the different phases of history by lots of people in different areas of the world, in particular in India and in Tibet. There's been tons of literature produced. The actual writing about Tummo itself, the Tummo meditation, the inner fire meditations, that's fairly limited. So I think it's kind of neat to be able to decode the imagery back to one's own energy, to actually have inspiration, because I've had great support from Vajrasattva, from Indian gods and goddesses. I can sort of see, and my YouTube algorithm even supports me in that, giving me a mantra for a god that I've never heard of at a moment that I need that kind of energy to be for me to, when I need to realize this is something I need to pay attention to. It's fascinating, and it's really cool. So I've had a lot of help, even from the YouTube algorithm. I've had quite a bit of help here, and especially recently, which I needed because, by God, yes. It's a powerful practice. Once you're in it beyond a certain level, you're going to have to just run with it and keep at it. It is very pleasant to do. I do not think that there are really unpleasant moments. The only thing is that you have to learn to trust the energy. Trust it. Feel it. Let it do its thing, and realize that there's another element to this whole practice, and an important one is your own emotional life, your own, how you're dealing with your things, and the truth about who you really are, the truth about why some things are super hard for you, why I get these ideas about, everything. All the programming, and in my case, all the anxiety, it just comes to the surface. It comes forward, it comes out, because anxiety is basically, can I say that? Yes, fundamentally, who you really are, okay? Anxiety does not have a place there. You are not supposed to be anxious. How can I say this? There's a double-edged business going on here. The one side is our anxiety is something that we need to accept. We cannot suppress. We cannot go on suppressing anxiety for form's sake, for politeness sake, because we don't want to scare other people because we're scared. Even though that's what we've done, and it's polite conversation and it's polite life to not foist your turmoil onto everybody else, of course. But for ourselves, we need to acknowledge our fears. We need to acknowledge and name the things, the mechanisms that have hurt us and kept us in this particular state, is what I think. On the other hand, and at the same time, on the B side of this same record, okay, I believe anxiety is unnatural. You're not supposed to be anxious your whole life. So there's radical acceptance and there's radical self-love, and they meet in the middle, and you have to figure it out every single day, and sometimes several times a day, what the Tummo is doing. And the Tummo doesn't necessarily do exactly, it doesn't blow away the anxiety. On the contrary, it will ignite it. Only if you manage to sort of weasel your way through this, as I have over the past 3 years, using a lot of my own brain and a lot of my own self-preservation, which I've got tons of, thank God, I can direct the energy where I want it to go, and sort of still discover areas and approaches nowadays that give me new results. So you're never really done. And this is where it gets into the details of anxiety, which is why what I was trying to get to as to, my answer, my result for today, really. I have had things happen to me in the past, not so much physical trauma as psychological trauma, quite some helpings of that, from the day I was born. And my parents before that didn't have easy lives either, okay? So I've got quite a helping of constructs and reaction patterns in myself that often generate this kind of anxiety, that if I'm in a new situation, if I'm in a situation with new people that I don't know or trust, people that I am worried about that I won't be able to do whatever is expected of me. It's got a lot of times it has to do with expectations, either that I think people have of me, or my own expectations of myself, or my own expectations that I have of their expectations. You take your pick, whichever. Probably all of this is fairly familiar, you know. It turns out that what I found doing my Tummo, because I was having this constant adrenaline going through my body, I was going nuts and I didn't like it. Over the whole of the past couple of weeks, it's just been constant pressure, and I've been sleeping okay and it's not that bad, but it's been a nuisance, like a huge, big, fat nuisance, having to still, you know, with my Tummo and everything, with all the newfound power and all the healing power and all the rest of it, and all the understanding, this is kind of coming to a crossroads for me, a crossroads of fear, okay? And I can point out by now for myself the location of the crossroads of fear in my body. And it sits about that far in. What is that? 2 inches, give or take? That does look like 3 inches, but it isn't. This much at the height, at the level of my stomach. In here, okay? And then this much inward. There's like a point there, or an area the size of a hazelnut, give or take, where my Tummo practice has shown me that there's a whole set. There's not just the middle channel, which is another part of this whole energy setup with the dantians, if you remember, okay? There's a middle channel that conducts most of the Shakti to the rest of your body that you use to live with, to actually have your body do its functions most of the time. Apart from the middle channel, there's literally dozens of other channels sitting around that in my experience so far. And this point under the stomach is sort of the repository and the main, how can I put this, archive of all my anxiety experiences that I've had. There's a knot there. Instead of there being a current of Shakti flowing through it, or Tummo, or whatever it is at the time, I have actually done 2 separate approaches to help remedy this. So having the first dantian level come up, so the Tummo level that sits in the first dantian, you can actually engage all these different channels. Have the dantian be, this is important because it, after a couple of years of doing a lot of Tummo, it is very easy to only work over here, you know, or over here, or in your heart, or whatever. It is very important, I felt, to always come back to the first dantian, to really reset, allow the first dantian to have, certainly with female organs and female hormonal cycles, I'm not kidding, okay? The energy is also needed down there to be available to do the things that need to be done. So there's that. I have noticed that one of the 2 approaches was to have the energy from the whole of the circle of the dantian into each and every one of the channels, especially at the back of me, at the back of my middle channel, okay, towards my backbone. There's a couple of channels there on either side that really connect, strangely enough. There's a connection there. That's why, because these channels, they go through the bowels, okay, through the intestines. This is why when there's not enough, when there's a blockage, not a bowel blockage, but an energy blockage in that system at the sort of at the level of what are those called? Your kidneys. That's what they're called. Okay? The channels connect to each other, and they connect forward to this area under the stomach where the programming sits. This whole level at that kind of a sort of like a one plane of existence, is where the programming, the archive for anxiety has sat all my life. So I've had to do the two things. I've had to create the Tummo energy to come up all around 360 to that level. And in particular, and that's part two of the same thing, at the back of me and the area of my kidneys, same process, Tummo coming up through there and then spreading forward to come actually eventually to this crossroads point below the stomach. And I can tell the difference. As I always keep saying, you know, when I finally finish describing the whole process, which I have no clue whether anybody will actually compute this, you know, doesn't really matter that much. I am trying to, I cannot stop myself from talking about these things. I feel like it is my job to put Tummo info on to the net, onto my channel in this way. It is free, it's easy to access, and you don't have to do what I do. Why should you? Only if it appeals to you, it may here and there just give you a little nugget of something that you actually need to know. I do not need to hear about that, even though it is really cool if I do. I don't suppose that's really the point. As you change, the world changes. Okay? So as I am doing this, I change. I change my own relationship to anxiety. I don't think I will never be anxious again. But I have taken out the factor, the fundamental factor in that crossroads bit down there. The pit of my stomach is what they call it, not for no reason, right? Where you've such intense memory of being subjugated, it's the word that comes up in my mind, right? Of being forced to obey, to comply, to let yourself be hurt. That instead of having a free flow of energy come up into your third chakra, which sits right at the same, more or less at the same location, just a bit above that, I think. Instead of that, there's this whole twisted knot pathway. It's like, it's a crossroads, but it looks more like a walnut that's been really twisted around. So your energy doesn't go nicely into the third chakra. And you're not free to express yourself, which is what the third chakra is about. You're not free to say, I want this. I don't like that. Yes, no, you know. And that is where our self-image really sits in our bodies. See? It makes sense eventually. I hope. Well, it makes a ton of sense to me. And so by bringing the Tummo into that area from the back, actually from the kidney department forward into that seemed to sort of be the main pathway to help reorganize this whole area, because it's not really a point. The crossroads not really a point. It goes under the stomach to the back as well. There's lots of tension there. And even if you've done Tummo for nearly 3 years, nearly every single day of my existence over the past 3 years have been morning and evening, or somewhere in the 24 hours, I have done a serious bit of Tummo practice. Still, there are pathways and approaches and levels at where I have not done exactly that. So doing exactly that creates a whole new development and a whole new, in this case, a whole new sense of freedom and warmth in there. It is so nice. I wish I could just give you a piece of that for free, which is what I'm trying to do here basically with my long intel. Because I get a chance now. I actually have given myself, created, pulling myself up by my bootstraps out of the swamp. Create the new configuration where it is really what you are able to give. I was blamed for not giving the things. They were right. I didn't know where to begin. This has been so impactful, and it has kept me imprisoned behind bars. And I'm a Leo. I don't really live well behind bars. I really don't. So improvements, definitely. And I'm going to go out for a coffee. I'm going to open the big package first and see whether the flour is okay. The from the windmill. Thank you for watching. I was totally about this today. I feel like there's a whole lot of relaxation coming in there. It's a lot healthier. Your body tells you this is a lot nicer. So it's not about the brain, the anxiety. See? Not necessarily. But if there's enough adrenaline singing around in your skull, of course, that's what people are gonna look at. They're gonna give you meds. And it doesn't solve the actual problem. It's a coping strategy using meds of any kind, is my personal take on this, okay? And if you manage to get through another day better with meds for now, and that is the best that you have been able to, then of course, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. You should do what works for you anyway, always. But I'm not mad, I'm not crazy mad about pharma industry making money over the backs of hundreds of thousands of people suffering from anxiety like I have. If we can break this open, even if I only have 20 people seeing this video in a couple of years' time, I don't know. It's better than not speaking out. And there's lots of other kinds of remedies that you can, still use and try to... don't let them make money off you. That's disgusting. It's a waste of good money. There. Thank you for watching. Bless your soul. Bless your immortal soul. Immortal and immortal, both of them. And I'll see you again later. Okay? Thank you, my dears. See you then. Bye-bye.